there's been a lot of things that are the headwinds against us right now, and you could feel pretty darn depressed after a couple years of incredibly hard times, and we've heard from all of you how difficult it has been. We've seen it, we've experienced it, and yet there's so much possibility. And we are going to take on this MCAS. We've knocked some holes in it, and now we are going to bring the system of high-stakes testing down in the coming years. And one of the things that's so exciting, and you have this leader in Deb McCarthy who's taken the stand, been a conscientious objector, given an example to others around the state that we're going to have to take this thing on collectively, but also in a new way. So we're going to do that. And then we're also going to keep going on winning a basic right, which is basic living wages for all our educators. And our ESPs said it is criminal that our schools pay people poverty wages. And we're going to fix that. We're starting to. We've had successes in the state over the past year. We're going to finally fund public higher education and achieve debt-free public higher education in the Commonwealth. Raise the wages, adjunct justice, raise the wages of our lowest paid faculty and staff, and then actually secure this thing we once had at UMass Amherst, which was debt-free public higher ed. We can do that, and now is the moment to do it. And one way we're going to be able to achieve all of that is by, maybe Chris, you could just stand up for 1 second and turn around. If we eat the rich. I guess you don't have to even turn around. It's on the front as well. Right, you got it on the front also. So look, we are in the middle of this fight for the Fair Share Amendment. Those, our friends here, I know about it. We are going to tax the wealthiest in the state and return some of the surplus value that's been stolen from workers in this state by taxing the people who make over $1 million a year. Let me just give you, it's going to happen. Let me say, it's 100 days from now. 100 days from now, we all get to chip in to do that, showing up, canvassing, phone banking, in your locals, at farmers markets, everywhere, so that we can beat back the millionaires and billionaires and win this. And someone asked me, it was actually Jess Winder-Schubo, president of the striking Brookline Educators Union. She said, well, how do you measure like the different, wealth of different people? So an ESP might start, an education support professional might start pay at $17,000 a year, poverty wages. That would be about, if you piled single dollar bills on the floor, it would be about here, 6 feet. I know I've been telling you I'm 6 feet, but I'm actually not. So it's like 6 feet of dollar bills if you call to get 17,000. $1 million, where the tax starts, that is 100 feet taller than the UMass library. The tallest library in the world. If you piled single dollars up to get to $1 million a year, it would be about 398 feet tall. That's 296 feet tall. Okay? And then, if you want to tax the guy who Chris Smalls has been beating back, Jeff Bezos, that is 70 miles into the sky up to the space station. So I just want to that just illustrates the stark inequality that we are living in. And that our job as workers, as union members, is to lift that up and challenge this stark inequality that we swim in. And challenge that austerity narrative. Whenever you hear someone say there's not enough money, well, you can use whatever epithet you want, ever swear word you want, but tell them they're wrong. The problem is the money is in the hands of the wrong people who have, frankly, taken it from people who produced it. So look, let's hear from some of the workers who are taking on some of the wealthiest people and corporations in this country and the world. And you have 3 of them here. So let me just quickly give you some quick bios. First, Kyla Clay. Began her organizing at the Starbucks store in Alston. And she started organizing after seeing the swift response from corporate when the first 3 stores in Buffalo filed for an election. Starbucks' anti-union campaign led her to research what a union is and why the Buffalo partners were fighting for one. And then since then, she's helped over 20 stores file for elections throughout New England. And in the middle of this, she did something I don't think I've ever seen, which is graduate from Suffolk University Law School with her Juris Doctor in the evening and Boston University with a Master of Science in Criminal Justice the same afternoon. So pretty remarkable. So she hopes to become a defense attorney at some point, but right now she's supporting her fellow baristas through Starbucks Workers United. To her left is Tyler Degare, who was born and raised in Visalia, California, which is both an area that's a hub for agriculture, but also for poverty. Those often go together. And he credits his surroundings with initially sparking his class consciousness from an early age. And he studied political science and philosophy at San Francisco State University. Both of them though they've organized separate stores, Kyla and Tyler can claim that they are baristas at the first unionized Starbucks in Massachusetts. So many of you followed this. On December 11, 2021, they filed their petitions together with the NLRB, and on April 11th, they both won their elections unanimously. Okay. And then our last guest is someone you might have heard of, Chris Smalls, who's the president of the Amazon Labor Union. And as you know, the Amazon Labor Union is an independent, democratic, worker-led union at Amazon in Staten Island. And Chris is also the founder of the Congress of Essential Workers, a nationwide collective of essential workers and allies fighting for better working conditions. His story is well known, and his firing by challenging the unsafe working conditions has been the subject of an ongoing lawsuit by Attorney General Letitia James, and he's been profiled in many, many outlets. Unfortunately, his partner in crime, Derek Palmer, could not be here today, but both of them together were named 2 of Time's 100 most influential people of 2020. But note that they were named that even as Time refuses to negotiate a fair contract with its own workers. So I know Chris will be helping them out. All right, let's get right to it. I want to start with a few questions, but then we'll turn it over to the audience. And think of the questions that you would like to ask. So really, the three of you, we wanted to ask briefly, same question that Deb and I kind of answered. How did you get to this place? What is the role of your family, your education, your experiences growing up that found you in this place as really significant labor organizers? Anyone want to start? I guess you guys, you don't need this. You can just. Oh yeah, can
y'all hear us pretty well? Is everything coming through? I mean, I guess I never have any problem being heard. So, yeah. So that's a really good question. And honestly, like kind of in the bio, I'm from like an agrarian part of California, a larger city within the area, but still very like agrarian, rural, kind of where the farm workers used to organize, which is like Madera. Anyway. Growing up there, there was like a stark contrast between rich and poor. So right away, I knew something was like, just not okay in the world. But I think as I progressed, I just sort of realized that I had this desire to just figure out, hey, if there was a problem, how do we solve it? How do we fix it? So in high school, I was really involved, just helping my fellow students, student government, stuff like that. Went to college at SF State and started studying politics and was like, well, this system's terrible. What else can I study? Then I wanted to ruin my mind, so I studied philosophy. And after that, I decided I'd started a couple organizations on campus, mostly for like environmental organizing and stuff like that. But I needed there to be like a broader, like intersectional class conscious philosophy that I was studying, right? So I took a year off and I was like, hey, I've already wasted a bunch of my time. Let's go to law school. And in doing that too, I saw even more how the institutions that we're a part of are really a microcosm of the world that we live in, right? Stark inequality, bureaucratic top-down control, profiting off of students not actually caring about their well-being and success, right? So, and that radicalized me too to start a mental health and wellness organization that was trying to address material needs. So when I started working at Starbucks, I said, well, how can we do this for our fellow baristas? And then Buffalo, popped off and saw that. And I posted on Instagram, hey, does anybody else want to do this in Boston? And one of my law school friends was like, I have a friend in Buffalo who's organizing with them. And so we got connected, and that's how it worked. And then I met Kyla. Yeah.
Good segue.
Thank you. Yeah.
Kyla, you want
Yeah. I guess I'll say I've always been a very vocal advocate. My mom was actually a kindergarten teacher, and she taught my class. But I remember when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I told off her boss for not staffing her properly. So my family always thought I would be a lawyer because I'm very loud and proud about it. And I was very set on doing criminal defense. I was actually in a prisoners debate team throughout college, and I knew that's really where I wanted to be and where I wanted to focus my passion on. And then I got to law school, and I just learned that there's so many more injustices, including in labor law. And here I am working at Starbucks on the weekend while I'm in law school, and just realizing that there are a lot of problems that we don't seem to have control over. And then I started reading in the news something about a union, and I will be honest, I did not know what a union really was, but I knew that corporate was freaking out about it because they had sent all of these people to Buffalo essentially to scare these workers. So I started wondering, okay, why are they so afraid? What's going on? What is a union? And as soon as I learned what a union was, I was like, oh, okay, that's why they're so afraid, because it's going to change the power in their workplace. And it wasn't soon after that I reached out to Workers United and started organizing. And then I met Tyler, and then I met Chris one day too. So just one thing led after the other. And now we've really created a really robust region with a bunch more stores in Massachusetts that have joined us since.
That's so great. Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, Amazon fired me. No, as a kid growing up, I watched my mother work 2 jobs, go to school. So I naturally became the leader of the household at a young age, and that transitioned into me being as independent as I was, just growing up as a young adult. And I became really, really good in sports. So I love basketball as a hobby, love football. I ran track. And also as a hobby, created music. I was a rapper at one time and independent artist. So being an independent artist, you're an organizer because you have to bring people together. So I brought people to these venues every weekend, and it was hard, especially back then. We didn't have social media the way we have it now. We didn't have Instagram. So it was a lot of word of mouth conversations, face-to-face conversations. So that developed me into, being a people's person. Never had stage fright, and, always wanted to be a center of attention. I love that, and as you tell me. It wasn't until literally the pandemic when I started becoming an organizer / activist. Always had it in me, but I wanted to move up in the company at first. I worked at Amazon for almost 5 years. I opened up 3 buildings. Actually, one not too far from here, Windsor, Connecticut. I actually lived in Ellington. Yes, for a year I lived in Connecticut, and when before the pandemic, I applied to be a manager 50 times and was only interviewed twice. So I was already done with the company before that. So when the pandemic hit, obviously, watching my coworkers and colleagues come to work or not come to work because they were sick or they were afraid because there were no PPE, no cleaning supplies for us, no real guidance. That's when I pretty much took my stance against the company and You know the rest. I did a walkout March 30th, 2020, and then 2 hours after that, I was fired. When Jeff Bezos, a week later, along with his general counsel, decided to have that meeting, called me not smart or articulate. Ironically, they also said to make me the face of the whole unionizing efforts against Amazon. So I just said, good idea.
Yeah, they're regretting that decision, that little strategy. So Chris, let me just start with you on a second question. And it's in some ways the obvious one, but it's so important for us. We've been transforming this union to really focus ever more on collective action, because we know collective action within our locals, but also across the different regions, because that's the way we're going to build power and build better working conditions. So what was the nature of your success? What do you think when you think about how you were able to achieve this? What was the source of that success?
Well, number one, it's just really simple. It's loving and caring for one another. You know, a union represents a family, and we built a culture at Amazon that was never seen before. Amazon's ran completely off the numbers and metrics, machinery, management. That's a part of the machinery, and they treat everybody as a number when you walk in there. You know, as soon as you walk in, you're on productivity. But what the Amazon Labor Union did with our campaign, we showed our coworkers that we're going to be there for you no matter what. You know, at the end of the day, they saw me at the bus stop. In the morning, they saw me at the bus stop. I spent over 300 days at the bus stop. You know, whether it was having coffee in the morning, to having 20 barbecues, to handing out food in the break room, to paying for Uber rides home. Paying people to get transported to the hospital because Amazon wouldn't pay for an ambulance. Little things like that. It's the little things that matter to them, and that's something that anybody can do. Anybody can offer up. You know, just a time to even listen to somebody. Conversations that matter to our coworkers and colleagues, and that culture that we created. It's just a real loving and caring culture. You know, we still to this day, you know, Amazon will never be able to match that. No amount of money, the $4.3 million they spent, the $10,000 a day that they spend on the union busters, the over 3,300 classes of captive audiences that they put these workers in. It didn't matter. We defeated all those odds because we cared for one another.
That's beautiful. Wow. Callie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely echo the family approach to all of this. I think at Starbucks, a lot of us already have a family built into our store before a lot of us unionized, but going through that process together, I think really strengthens those ties, because you're sitting in those captive audience sessions together. You're being gaslit by your district manager and your regional VP together. And I think that makes us so much stronger. I also think that we've become very desensitized to our working conditions. And I think we've also become very detached to our labor history. And so it's easy for us to forget that it was a long time ago that we won the 8-hour workday. And it was a long time ago that, you know, we had abolished child labor in the way that we had. But at the same time, nothing's changed since then. You know, we've remained stagnant. We still continue these 8-hour workdays. We shouldn't have stopped there. We have to keep going. The NLRA, like people have said, is not the end. It's really, that was just a compromise. So we still have much more work that needs to be done. And I think that a big part of organizing is, you know, especially at a place like Starbucks, where we have really good benefits and we're said to be one of the best in the industry, to talk to workers and to validate them in all of the hardships that they actually are facing at work. Because just because we have these benefits does not mean we all get them. Just because we, you know, appear to be this very progressive company does not mean that we don't have racism and homophobia in our workplace. So I think really like listening to people, giving them a space to talk about that, and in a way, agitating them, reminding them that this is an issue and it's an issue that we can change. I think that's really key to bringing us to collective action.
Thanks. And Tyler,
Yeah,
what do you
could
think? The nature of your success.
Yeah, yeah. Could you restate the question?
Yeah. How do you, for so long, people thought this was impossible.
Right.
It's Amazon, Starbucks, and yet now you help make it happen in Massachusetts. So what was the source of your success, you think?
Right. Yeah. That's I obviously I have to re-up what Chris and Kyla said about family, of course, and community. But I think it's also it's the domino effect of, and this is what I think your role in here as teachers is so important and inspiring. It's the domino effect. Once you see that someone somewhere is standing up against this, it radicalizes you. It shows you, oh, right, we need to be doing something about this. This isn't right. But it really just takes, it takes our Buffalo, it takes a Staten Island to really go, oh, we should be doing this too. And that's the beauty of it. The thing is, we can't keep it contained. We have to be mobilizing and taking bold actions to continue this forward. We need to keep the momentum growing. So I think that it's not only community that wouldn't exist if not for, a bunch of different people saying, this is enough, we're going to stand up. So inspiration is a huge part of this, and community is how we foster that growth and expand it, I think. But I think that's what really motivated our movement out in Massachusetts. And I know being inspired by Amazon and being inspired by just a bunch of people coming up, coming together to say screw this system, is really, really inspiring. So I think that's my answer too, is just seeing what's around me. Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank you. All right. Well, let me ask one last question, then we'll open up to the crowd. We'll go start with you, Tyler. So I mentioned at the beginning this campaign we're in the middle of, again, 100 days away from trying to extract $2 billion from the wealthiest every single year. So we put a ton of effort into that. And frankly, I think one of the goals is not just to win it in Massachusetts, but start a domino effect and inspire people in other places to start taxing their own wealthy people. So how do you see your organizing efforts, Starbucks and Amazon, as part of that larger battle against gross wealth inequality in this country?
Oh, yeah. Well, again, this is a perfect segue, by the way. But I would say that what we've seen, I'm sure, Chris, you could attest to this as well, that we've had people come up to us from different coffee shops and cafes in our area and just say, hey, look, what you guys did made me want to organize my store. So all these different coffee shops and cafes in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts are going, oh, shoot, we need to be organized in our workplace too. How can we do this? So I think that, again, kind of the collective action of workers and these different, groups of workers coming together to push back against this corporate narrative and this corporate control is the domino effect that threatens the wealth disparities and wealth inequality. I think with respect to fair share, and I did my homework on this, I was like, I got to know as much as I can about fair share. I mean, I was saying to Anthony and to Mike too, I was like, I had no idea that Massachusetts was a flat tax state for the longest time. And 5% to us, 5% to someone who makes $15 an hour is very different than 5% to someone who makes $1 million a year, right?
Right on.
So, I mean, it's got to be a bottom-up, intersectional, class-conscious movement, right? And I think starting with workers who are making that minimum wage. I mean, the fact that teachers, I'm sorry, but the fact that teachers, we talk about a lot of teachers not even making a living wage. What is a living wage should be the base? Well, we should all have a living wage. The fact that the teachers who are building our generations don't have that is ridiculous. Everybody should have it, but teachers, are you kidding me? So. Educators, not just teachers. Yeah, right. Gotta be clear on that. Thank you, Kyla. Yeah. But to that extent, I think it starts with us in this room, right? It starts with us. We are the threat to wealth inequality. We are the threat to the 1%. And the Fair Share Amendment, absolutely, that is going to be the thing that sends a domino effect across the country, just like Starbucks and Amazon had a domino effect across, the worker movement across the country.
Right on.
So yeah, right on. Yeah, good to be here. Callie, your thoughts?
Yeah, I memean, I think I definitely would echo what Tyler said. I think that all of our fights are interconnected, and I think the biggest thing is that we acknowledge that and work together. We've seen so many folks show up on our picket lines this week over at 874 Commonwealth Avenue. They're on day 14 of their strike, and it's been thanks to this community. I mean, I'm sure there are people in this room right now who have showed up on the picket line and who have helped us staff it so it's like we keep it alive at 2 a.m. And that's because of our community. And I think that, you know, the support we're getting from y'all, just know that that is something that we want to reciprocate, and we want to support you all too. And that's something that I think we have to continue to cultivate, is that solidarity in the movement, because there's nothing scarier to these CEOs than when we all come together. You know, it's a little scary to think of them all in one room, but it's way scarier to think of all of us in one room.
And Chris, I'll give you the last word on this round, and we'll open it up. But I will say that I think it is the quote is perhaps the most quoted line, and my favorite line of maybe this century, which is when Jeff Bezos was up in his rocket ship, we were organizing a union. So tell us, I don't think it's going to be hard to tell us how you're attacking the rich by your work. So tell us.
Yeah. Once again, Tyler and Kyle, they spot on. We have to come together. You know, this is a labor movement. You can't have one foot in and one foot out. It's either you're all the way in or you out. There's no in between. There's no in between. So, you know, when one person moves or one union moves, we have to support that action. And, you know, you guys are going to be the catalyst for something that's going to take place across the nation. It's only right that, you know, we get on board with that, especially as the younger generation. You know, we are inspiring that movement as well. And we want to make sure that the message is the same. You know, the real vital key is the educators. You know, I didn't have anybody teaching me about labor, the real labor history growing up. Because I would have said, shoot, I could be as cool as a rapper, as an organizer, I'd have been did this. So, you know, it starts with our educators. You guys are talking to our children every day. I have 10-year-olds, you know, teach them the real history of labor in this country. Teach them what they're up against. Young, start them young. I was amazed to see, I walked into a middle school classroom on Staten Island, and this 7th grader came up to me and was like, I hate Jeff Bezos. And I'm like, hell yeah. That's the next president right there. So, yeah, you know, that's where we at right now. We're at a window of opportunity where, you know, we have to, if possible, we have to withhold our labor. You know, this country is overdue for that. I'll tell you that, you know, gun violence, women's rights, war, you name it. The list goes on and on. Social injustice, environmental, labor, all of these things that are unresolved, and we're talking about 2024. You know, they want us to get ready to vote. That's all they're going to preach now. Get out and vote. Vote for who? And vote for what? So it's a point in time where we have to, as labor, we have to make a conscious decision on what are we going to do in this country. Are we going to continue to get what we don't deserve, or are we going to withhold our labor and get what we rightfully deserve?
Right on.
That's where we are. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, one day every industry, every union can come together on one accord and say, you know what, we're not going to work until we get what we deserve. And that is a better quality of life.
Dude.
Period.
Right on, right on. Yeah. Let's get to people's questions. No doubt you all have lots of questions. So, Deb, you want to grab it, or who has a question? Oh, honey. Oh,
We can handle it.
So thank you all for coming. As somebody who's been to 874 Con Ave a couple times,
right on.
I'm concerned about them because Starbucks is so big. If there were, a small chain with a couple stores, they would really be suffering. But Starbucks seems perfectly happy to keep that store shuttered and let these people just strike day after day after day. And I'm wondering what else besides going there and walking the line with these people, are there things we can do to put pressure on the company in a bigger way, in a more national way?
So Starbucks right now is scrambling to try to open that store. As someone who works in that district, we are brutally understaffed. Despite them hiring new people all the time, they are not able to actually train those people. And if Starbucks wanted to open up that store, frankly, they can't, because we have maintained the picket line 24 hours a day. Thanks to our delivery drivers who are Teamsters, they will not cross that line. So we have spoken to almost every employee in our district and told them, do not take a shift, do not cross that picket, and we will make sure that they do not receive any deliveries. Although it's true that we would have a lot more power in numbers. So I will give a little sneak preview that there is a lot of action taking place tomorrow, August 1st, which is the day that Starbucks will be rolling out a series of new benefits and excluding the unionized and organizing partners from these benefits. Oh, I like that hiss. That's good.
Thank for that.
I like the hiss. So it's going to aggravate a lot more stores. And I think the most important thing that we can be working towards right now is gearing up more stores to be strike ready. Because ultimately, the only way we're going to win a contract and the only way we're going to stronghold Starbucks into giving us what we want and respecting our rights to organize is if more and more stores are willing and ready to withhold labor, and if we have people who are willing to withhold their money as well. So I think the best ways that you can help right now with these striking workers, one is by donating to their strike fund, and you can do that if you check out our Twitter at Boston SBWU, because we do anticipate that they'll be on the picket line for a long time. But they're willing to stand their ground, which I think is incredibly commendable and something that we all need to continue rallying around and supporting them with. We also need volunteers on the picket line 24 hours a day. We have our sign up on our Twitter account as well. And then also helping us speak to other stores. As I said earlier, we're very desensitized and very detached to our working conditions and our working history. Listen to the partners, ask them about their day, ask them about, are you short-staffed today? Because oftentimes it just takes that nudge of kind of rethinking what you're experiencing every day. We are all worker bees. I know too many workers who won't call out sick even when they are sick because they feel bad leaving their workers in those conditions. And we shouldn't be feeling guilty over that. We shouldn't feel like this is what's normal. So I think helping us wake up to that and helping us explore the ideas of unionizing and what that really entails, I think that is one of the best ways you can help workers right now.
So hearing you talk about being worker bees, educators also love to work and not call out sick and not use sick days, etc. So my question is sort of about like pacing yourself. These campaigns don't happen overnight. It takes a lot of organizing, and you're here, but also there are so many people behind you who have done the work. What are some of the strategies you use to pace yourself during these campaigns that are, they're incredible, because it seemed like, holy shit, this wouldn't have happened, a few years ago. We did it. What a huge win. But not every day is a win. There are some days that are not wins. So Like, how do you keep going? How do you pace yourself? And like, what do you do to hype yourself up when you're like, this is not going well?
Right. Well, number one, I mean, organizing is 24/7. So whether we home or not, we're still in the fight, you know, and we all, you know, I always remind my organizers that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You know, you're gonna have days where, you know, we get one signature. You know, we had those days, we had 0 signatures, nobody talked to us. And then we had days where we had over 200. You never know, but the bottom line is that you're there. Availability is pretty much the best accountability. It's that you're there no matter what. You know, I had workers that walked past me for 2 or 3 months, won't even take a pamphlet. But I was there that one time, that manager came and got on their ass. And I was like, I'm right here with the union card. So just having their back, just making sure that your presence is there, the shoulder to lean on, the shoulder to cry on. You know, everybody knows as far as organizing, it's stressful. The one thing I learned is you can never get 100% agreements in the room, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's lunch, whether it's, you know, so it's always the majority, and then it's also building up a commonality, keeping the conversation focused on the issues in the workplace. You know, you heard when I said to Lindsey Graham, a left or right thing is a worker's thing.
Yeah.
You know, so it's our issues we're talking about. They don't understand that. So we the only ones that can fix that. You know, so focusing the conversation on that, reminding yourselves that small victories matter. That, you know, celebrate as much as we can as organizers. We don't have a life. Our time don't belong to us. So if you can grab a bear, grab a bear. If you smoke weed, more power to you. Pass the blunt. But you know, the bottom line is mental health is not talked about enough. I'm dealing with it right now. You know, so always take care of yourself. If you're not okay, then how can you fight for others? So always take care of yourselves. Always pat yourself on the back for small victories, no matter how big or small. And also reiterate that to your organizers and those that you're organizing and fighting with. Remind them that, you know, once again, this is a marathon. You know, we got to be in it for the long haul. Commitment is vital to this. If you're not committed, you might as well walk away now, because this is a long fight, uphill climb. And yeah, you're going to have some days where, you know, you're not going to want to get up, but you're going to have to. And that's where we're at right now. Labor has to. There is no turning back. We have to stand up now. Because if we stand up and we fight back, we won.
Yeah.
Patrick, not with NTA, United Auto Workers, who represent the grad workers here and the undergrads. My coworkers and the other leaders got to see some folks that Labor Notes are great. That was several years ago, but able to be here. Is there anyone here from Trader Joe's in the room? So they're already here.
Oh yeah, I met 2 of them last night, so I will be visiting the store today before I leave.
Oh yeah, we got time.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We got time.
So, we really appreciate so much energy with these new unions who are really putting lifeblood into the labor movement by starting unions where there haven't been any. And MTA, we're sort of at the opposite end of the spectrum. We're like a big, huge union, you know, been around a long time, one of the biggest in New England. And so in solidarity, do you have any advice or constructive criticism for big established unions that you've learned as, you know, from your experiences?
Don't worry, we can take
well-
comradely criticism. Go for it. Who wants to start?
I'll start real quick. For establishment unions, well, Amazon hasn't been unionized in over 28 years, from the beginning. That's why we felt going the independent route would benefit us, and it did. So now that we broke down that barrier, everybody's storming the door, which we want. We want that to happen, but it has to be done the right way. A lot of people are gravitating to the culture with the ALU, same thing with Starbucks. So for established unions, the best thing you can do is really allow us to blossom. You got to get out the way, some of y'all. But there's some established unions, I ain't gonna name them because I met a lot of them. But there's some of them that, they feel like they can do exactly what we did. It doesn't work that way, You have to be invested into the industries that you're organizing. You can't just say, let me get a salt up in there and start doing what we're doing. It doesn't work like that. Amazon workers, Starbucks workers, you'll stick out like a sore thumb. So for us, we have to be the leaders of this, and supporting us by bringing us to conventions is one thing, but actually really supporting us is another. Get involved with their strikes. That's very important right now. Get involved with any organizing efforts at Amazon facilities in your neighborhoods, because let me tell you now, 1 out of every 4 Americans by the year 2027, 1 out of every 4 will have work or work at Amazon. You're gonna know somebody. 1 out of every 4, if you don't already right now. So this is where we at. This is like Amazon is the Death Star, and we don't stop. They just bought the medical corporation.
Yep.
You want Amazon looking at your medical bills? Yeah. No. So this is really about us standing up and saying enough is enough. So for established unions right now, they have to follow our lead. To be honest with you, that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
All right.
Bring something new to the table.
Yeah, I would
All
add
right,
to that,
yeah, go
like, so much of this organizing right now is very intuitive, but I'm also told it's not very much the norm. It's not traditional organizing, and I don't have any background in experience or experience in organizing other than my own coffee shop and my coworkers' coffee shops, and I think that's a huge asset. Actually, I think it's really great that in a way we don't always know that something we're doing is a big deal. I had no idea what it meant to unionize Starbucks when I brought that little envelope to the NLRB that day. I had no idea that it was unheard of to have that many stores file and win in the time period that we did. I have a good friend of mine who's organizing her store over in Seattle, and when her store went on strike, they had yet to become a union, and she had no idea that you don't normally do that. And I'm serious. It's a very good thing that we don't know this, because we're not being held back by these old notions of how to organize. Instead, we're following our worker intuition, and that's going to be the reason we win. So I think when it comes to these older, union institutions, these larger institutions, the most important thing is to let the workers call the shots. Do it on their dime, do it on their time, but don't hold them back, essentially, because I think that a lot of the older institutions have this predefined way of what a union campaign looks like or what an organizer looks like, but we've been doing things in a very unorthodox manner, and it's clearly working. So I think that's the biggest advice I would have is try new things and listen to the people on the ground.
Great. Tyler, you want to add anything?
I mean, you both took everything. I mean, the only thing I would say is never become larger than the movement itself, right? I think that what we've seen a lot of, and what we tend to be concerned with, is that sometimes folks will not realize that the work they're doing it's all about us, right? It's got to be communal. It's got to be about the movement itself. Sometimes people, get one interview, you do this, you do that, little big for your britches, right? And so sometimes what can happen is, especially within grassroots movements, people will become more fixated on platforming themselves or on elevating themselves rather than truly sticking with the important tenets of the movement. And so I think one big thing to always remember is that always be available for criticism, always be willing to listen to people, even those you disagree with, and truly be willing to do whatever it takes to advance the cause. And that's something I've learned. I thought it would be we're gonna be organized, this is gonna be great. Left solidarity is a thing. I had no idea. Nobody told me that every group has something out for each other. So dude, and just be as much a beacon of unity as you can be, but also always just devote yourself to the movement, never lose sight of the cause. That's the biggest thing. But they freaking killed it. There's nothing else I could say.
I think you guys already answered my question. I was actually wondering, with each of you guys being, kind of the face of your respective fights and being, Amazon putting you as the face and the leader of these fights, right? I'm sure there's power, and I'm just assuming here, I've never been over there at a fight, so I don't know. But that there are power brokers that are coming to entice you with trying to get you to believe there's a way for you as an individual to get power and you just come with us and we got you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you all stay committed to a rank and file democratic fight? And what are the ways that us in the room can I guess keep that in the back of our minds when we're organizing that this is not about us. Or it's not about me, it's about us, right? So I'm curious how you guys keep that alive for yourself.
Absolutely. And number one, don't believe what you see on Twitter. I wouldn't have gotten here if it wasn't for my coworkers, my former coworkers and colleagues, so I can never, ever take that for granted. I didn't do this alone, and the people I organized with, they know that through and through. They know that, they call me now, no matter if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm picking up as if it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. They know that I'm gonna be there for them, vice versa. I know they'll give me their clothes up their back, and I will do the same. And as far as the broader picture, people want to say this and that about whatever platforms myself or they may get on, and I would just say, well, it's actually a good thing that we're getting to spaces with labor that we never reached before. Who the hell would have thought that I would end up on, 60 Minutes or Dr. Phil or Tucker Carlson or even going to the White House, I'm like, did y'all really do a background check? I mean, just saying, I was outside with the guillotine last year, but just saying, there's a video out there with about 11 million views, but just saying, but getting to these spaces is now reaching a broader crowd, or you can say a population that just really, when you talk about labor, it just doesn't get talked about. We don't make the New York Times front page often. So of course we got to amplify that. The ALU is everybody. Everybody in the labor movement, vice versa, with Starbucks, we're all the same. And that's the beauty of it. We're talking about labor at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what industry. And as long as we can expand off of that, we're going to reach populations and spaces that we never reached before. And I know a lot of people don't like that. It's like, oh, well, the media, they're not our allies. They're not, they write a bunch of, non-facts and allegations and this, that, and the third. At the same time, I can tell you now, as an Amazon worker, I work 10 to 12 hours a day. My commute was 2.5, 3 hours each way. I didn't come home and watch CNN. I didn't come home and watch Democracy Now! I didn't come home and watch whatever left show or podcast. I didn't do any of that. I went to bed and I rinsed repeated. But I do have a favorite podcast, and maybe it was The Breakfast Club. Well, guess what? I was on there. Guess what? So maybe some people watch Joe Rogan. I'm not a fan of him, but a lot of Amazon workers watch him. But if we get on conversation on there now, we're reaching them workers as well. So it's always about the message. Doesn't matter what platform, it's about the message. And like Tyler said, never losing sight of where you came from. I was that as a supervisor at Amazon. I never, one of my literal feedbacks was, we can't promote Chris because he'll side too much with the workers. And I said, hell yeah, I would. So, stay true to yourself. Never forget where you came from. We all started, from our communities, and these corporations reap all of our communities, and we have to get our fair share back.
Yeah.
Take it back.
Fair share, I like that. Yeah.
I would also add too, I mean, any interview, any discussion I have with anybody, my green apron is always on, whether you see it or not. I don't lose sight of the fact that it's Starbucks. It's these Starbucks workers that we're fighting for. It's workers everywhere that we're fighting for. And like Chris said, by being a part of these conversations, the media is not always our friend, right? But by being in these conversations and by having a platform, we can reach so many more workers and we can inspire so many more. I mean, like the Chipotle workers that just unionized in Maine, I was tweeting with them. We were messaging to find ways to support them because of their closure. And one of the things they said was that it was watching Starbucks workers that got them to want to do it. And so knowing that these platforms are not for anything but furthering our movement, I think is the most important thing to know when you're going through like that amazing moment where all of these people want to know more about what's happening, just remembering, why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. I like your question a lot too. I was gonna say, oh, do you have your question? Oh, please. Oh, no. Oh, okay, well, you better have a really good question because I'm very excited for it. I was just gonna say I really like your question a lot because like some of the questions I was like, oh dang, like Chris and Kyla knocked out of the park. I don't know what I'm gonna say. But for yours, like my brain went to like a different place, which is that, when you asked your question, my thought was, well, how am I dividing, opportunities to my fellow organizers? Because we were like the 5th and 6th stores in the country to unionize. That was really cool. Because we were the 5th and 6th stores in the country to unionize, we were privy to like the national happenings a lot faster than people who were like 30th, 50th, 100th, right? So as we're doing that, it just looks like we're consolidating a lot of the information and context because we were with it from the jump, right? So we always have to be asking ourselves, how are we creating opportunities for other people to be involved? And I think one of the biggest helps was engaging our other partners who are organizing in the area and say, look, like, what is your skill set? What do you love? Like, are you a big media person? Are you artistic? Like, what sort of things are you really good at that we can platform for you? And then when an opportunity arises, you take the lead on it, and then boom, now you're talking about it. Now you're taking you're the platform for it. So learning to step back and create opportunities for others, I think is huge. But that's where my brain went. And so thank you for that very much. But please, I'm so excited for your question now.
So back before the pandemic, when we used to do things like go out to dinner, my best friend had a stack of like business-sized cards with wine garden rights on them, and she would leave them with every single tip. And I was thinking back to this, and I was like, I want something like that to leave the Starbucks drive-through, when I hand over my payment. And then I was thinking, well, maybe you guys have flyers or something like that. Now, my Amazon delivery driver would be a heck of a lot harder to catch because I'm up a flight of stairs and I got a bad knee. But I was thinking about that. Maybe if I leave a bottle of water out for an Amazon driver or something, I could slip a flyer in there. So, there might be other people, but I'm really interested, like, when I get my Nitro cold brew, here, have a little information about unionizing.
Yeah. Absolutely, everything counts, we definitely had, customers say, what if we still, like, pro-union stickers on the packages? Like, hell yeah, do it. We encourage all of that, also canceling your prime, As educators, we was talking about the about the school supplies. I know there's a lot of partnerships with Amazon gift cards and things like that. Well, that's a start. As educators, if the school is saying, we're going to go through Amazon, say, no, we're not this year. We same thing, Starbucks, order your drinks Union Strong. That's a start. A lot of the stores won't even say the name out publicly now. So call that out. Say, no, I didn't hear you. So it's little things like that that'll motivate and encourage other baristas and Amazon workers to get involved.
And anyone here, if you would like, we have a whole bunch of little business cards with our contact information and a little QR code. So if you email us at greaterbostonsbw@gmail.com, I will mail you some buttons and some business cards.
Yeah.
Oh, good
Can we do
call.
that?
Oh, yeah. The email on the screen, you're saying? Yeah.
Oh, is it up there?
I don't know anything about tech, so I can't help you, but I
You wanna
heard
tell
what
us
you
the
Yeah,
said.
I could write it down for you
Okay.
if you'd like.
Yeah. Yeah, we can just get a pen,
The-
like,
the
write
app.
it down,
The app.
and we can put it on the, let's see the pen.
Sweet.
Where's the reception?
And talk about the big
Oh, it's Flagstone Terrace, right out there.
which is, we're all consumers, right? And we've all like ordered things from Amazon, and we've all gone through the line at Starbucks, and I just really torn with what's the best way to help as a consumer? Like, is a boycott the right thing to do? Like, how do we help you guys? Realizing that because of convenience, we all use Amazon, we all use Starbucks. And so I don't know, how do we help when we're on the other end buying a product?
I got a question for you. What were you doing 10 years ago?
I'm sorry, what was
What
that?
was you shopping at 10 years ago?
Where did I shop? I shop at the mall, all the malls are, or the stores that I used to go to.
Why? Why are they closed?
Found a better technological way to make it comfortable.
Is it comfortable or is it just a luxury for us? One click buy. Nobody thinks about how the package gets to the doorstep. That's the problem. So for us, it's a luxury to have that opportunity to have the package delivered the same day, the next day. But we don't realize the damage that we're doing to our own communities. You go back to your own Main Street. Where's your Main Street? It looks like new apartment buildings. So it's just, that's the damage that you're doing every time. So for us, I could say boycott, I can't really say it, but yeah, of course, that's an easy thing for me to call, but is people really going to follow that lead? No. So as educators, the revolution starts with ourselves. I know it's a drug you got to wean yourself off of, but there's let me tell you, I worked at Amazon and I never bought. I didn't even like this stuff. I don't know what the obsession is. I really don't. But I've been just fine. So it's not that hard. We just got to take the initiative to do it and realizing, it starts with our household, our family members. Like, we got to get them too. And I have family members that still shop on Amazon. They know what I'm doing. They're like, we love you, we support. I'm like, really? But I'm starting to get to them one by one. It may take it some more time, but having these conversations in our household, our neighbors, anywhere you go, it's easy to have a conversation of why we shouldn't support either one of these companies until they do better by their workers. The goal is not to shut Amazon down. yes, it does provide good things and job opportunities, but the thing that we're trying to do is make them a better company. And the way we do that is, Amazon is customer obsessed. But once they start hearing that their customers are supporting workers, they'll change. And we'll hopefully get them to come to the table.
Thank you.
You guys want to respond to that, or?
Yeah, I think for Starbucks workers, I think it's important to know that there's some Starbucks stores that will vary on opinion as to whether you should continue shopping at their store or not. But to what Chris said too, I mean, support your local coffee shops as well. Support those local workers and make it known to Starbucks that you don't support their union busting efforts, especially at stores where it's particularly rough. Those unionized stores are, constantly dealing with another union busting tactic being thrown at them. I would recommend, going to that Starbucks store, and instead of going there as your regular shopping experience, buy a $2 drip coffee and bring cash tips for your unionized baristas. Beginning tomorrow, a whole bunch of stores are going to finally have access to credit card tips, which is something our union has advocated for since day one, but union members won't have access to credit card tips. So show Starbucks that you don't support them by supporting the workers directly, because right now they're very clearly not supporting us.
I also want to say, and we've been very fortunate to have very supportive educators in our area. So my store is 277 Harvard Street in Brookline, Mass. So the Brookline Educators Union been on the picket line a lot for us. If Justin's in here, good. I don't know where Justin is, but if Justin's here.
Right here.
Justin,
Hi, Justin.
yeah, what's up? Yeah, you guys have been awesome. The Boston Teachers Association too, or BTU, the Boston Teachers Union, also been showing out. So what I would say in one sense is we have an Adopt a Store pledge, which I believe is probably also on Twitter.
Not right now.
Oh no! If you want it, reach out to us at the email, the Greater Boston SPW, to get connected. The Adopt a Store is basically how can you use either yourself, your union, whatever labor group you're a part of, to materially and substantively support workers. Right? We'll get you connected to the store liaison, and you can collaborate and have meetings about how can we as a union come and support you. Right? Be it the picket line, or bring in if you need help with groceries, right? Helping getting set up. If you're teachers, we got extra supplies. So that's one big thing for Adopt a Store. Keep that in mind. The other thing, as Chris said, yeah, we really can't say boycott. We can't call for a boycott. I just have a question for everybody, though. What's one of the most popular things you get around the holidays from parents? Really? Interesting. So that's pretty common. Okay. Now, are there other things maybe you could suggest people giving you instead? Do you think that's feasible? Is that maybe something you could, rather than those things that you just said, which I didn't ask you to say, are there maybe other things you could tell people to get you instead of those things? Is that pretty feasible? Yeah. Okay, well then maybe spreading the word and talking about that might be another way to get back at them as well.
How much of Starbucks income is from gift cards?
How'd you know I knew percentages? I want to say about 40%. Is last I checked. Yeah.
Also, Starbucks has a bank account basically where we have this app where you can order and you can put a whole bunch of money on there, but people actually forget there's a bunch of money on there. So Starbucks is basically like this bank that doesn't have to protect that money that people are putting in their cards. So moving away from mobile as well is something that you could consider, not necessarily boycotting, but not ordering on mobile is one thing that you can do instead.
Hi, in thinking about this fight as a generational fight, what can we as educators do to prepare our kids for a world, prepare our students for a world in which they will often be told, if they are engaging in this fight, oh, you're just a kid, you're just raging against whatever machine is the fad to rage against. You're just being a rebel and you're choosing a random cause. What can we do to think about this in terms of that sort of, that type of ageism, I guess.
Well, first of all, I think make sure that the word rebel is a good word, not a bad one. I've taken it as quite the compliment. There's actually an educator in here today, Justin, who has worked with 2 organizers that I had helped organize at their store, juniors in high school. And working with them, I found to be incredibly inspirational because they were so well informed about the issues. And the issues they weren't fully informed about, they were more than willing and ready to learn about them. And I commend the people who educated them to a point where they were feeling so willing and able to take that risk at their workplace and to help their coworkers. So I think that y'all have a very special power in your hands right now, and that's the power of education. And I think just really nurturing that organizer in everybody, because we all have it. We're all these worker bees. We're also all these organizers. So really empowering them to challenge the status quo, which, by the way, is one of Starbucks' core mission values. Encourage them to challenge the status quo and to take risks and to advocate always for what they believe in. And like Chris said, teach them about the labor movement, teach them about that history. I had no freaking clue what a union was until I was 24 years old with already almost a Juris Doctorate. That's a problem. Yeah. It shouldn't take that level of higher ed or that degree of seeing something in the news for me to realize what a union is. That's something I should have known in 10th grade or earlier. So really starting to reflect on lesson plans and how are we incorporating labor into everything. I wasn't really good at science, but I'm sure there's a way we can incorporate labor into science too. And just incorporating that so that way they're exposed to it early and often.
I was the rebel in school, especially elementary and middle school. My mom will tell you, I struggled to even pay attention to my educator at the time, because it wasn't because I didn't like school. I love being around my friends, and I love just being like the class clown, making everybody laugh. But I was the rebel, though. I definitely got kicked out of classes. I got put my desk put in the coat room a few times. I even. Oh, no, it's wrong, but no, I got him back. Don't worry about it. Just know that whoever left their lunch money in their coats that day. But what I'm saying is, as teachers and educators, if I once again would have known or had someone besides the normal Martin Luther King, lessons that we give, we would be a lot further along, when it comes to labor in this country. If we can teach our kids, integrate it into school lessons and classrooms. And we don't, the plans that we have, they point at the American dream. You're either a superstar, celebrity, an athlete, or you work hard, you get married, and you buy a house. Like that's what we're being sold as children, and we're not living that. That's not the reality of it. So to be honest, besides telling the truth, it really is a vital key to have educators really point to campaigns like ours that we can refer all to for children to look up to. We're inspiring the youth. We're the ones that are out in the media a lot, who's getting a lot of attention. And this is a real window of opportunity for us to even change our lesson plans and apply pressure to have labor incorporated in our school plans. Because it needs to be. There's no way around it now. And, that really starts with you guys, and I will come to your classroom.
All right. You all heard it. You all heard it.
That's also important, to have labor leaders come there for career day, not just police officers and firefighters.
So I think we have time for one more. Indeed. Yeah. I have to say, as someone who teaches history, I'm really pleased to hear about all this talk and enthusiasm about more labor history education. Let's do it. It's true, we've abandoned a central part of the history of this country in our schools and colleges, frankly. And even here at UMass, how many places are actually teaching labor history? So thank you all for saying that. The one last question we have actually from someone who's watching on Facebook Live. How have you helped, this is a perfect educator question, how have you helped your colleagues become comfortable with conflict? Right? And this is true. People recognize this. Many of our members believe in the cause, but are worried about conflict, whether it's even with the boss at workplace. So what?
Well, if you ain't got thick skin, this ain't for you. You know?
Yeah.
And honestly, it sucks to put it that, blunt, but it's really bad, as an organizer, and organizing with my core, we debate / argue and fight, but we love each other. We're a real family, brothers and sisters fight. I heard this from another union president. My brother, I have a brother, younger brother, we get on my nerves sometimes, call each other names, growing up as kids, we fight. But I would never let anybody else call him outside his name. Only I can do that. And that's the same way it has to be for the labor movement and for ourselves as well. We're gonna fight. We're not gonna get along sometimes. We're gonna debate on things. We're gonna have different ideologies on things. We can't allow that to divide us. And one thing you can't do as an organizer is let your emotions get the best of you. A lot of people do it all the time. There's people in here that you may not even be talking to, but let some time go by. Then you come back together because it's about putting that aside and building off of the issues. And as an organizer, again, you really have to remind yourself that, the enemy is the boss. And that's the key. The enemy is always the boss. It's not ourselves. But that's what they want. They want to take you divided. I want you to remind yourself that the enemy is the employer. Things will be fine. And, I know they're going to speak to it as well. But, I just have to, I'm laughing because I'm thinking of all the arguments I had in my head with my organizing team. Just love each other, because if you lose your core, it's really hard to rebuild that. It's really hard to start all over again. So you have people that you've been in this fight for 5, 10, 20 years. Those same people are still, even if you have disagreements, that's still your brother or sister. You gotta come back at some point in time and keep that core intact, And like I said, the boss is the enemy.
Do you have thoughts on that?
What did you say?
Do you have thoughts on this question?
Oh yeah, I don't want to interrupt you. Is there anything you
Either
want to
way.
say about it?
Or both?
I think that the most important thing to begin with is becoming comfortable with conflict yourself. And I think that's something we're always working on. And no one here is going to be perfect at that, but becoming comfortable with the fact that it will exist. And in some ways, it's actually very important, and it's very good to have conflict. Because odds are, if you're in a room where everyone's agreeing, there's probably some people who are not agreeing with you. So if you're comfortable with conflict and you can, allow a space where people can comfortably have that type of dialogue, you're creating a better place for everybody, even if it's uncomfortable. And like Chris said, and I've got 2 younger sisters myself, we've definitely had conversations where I would be very upset if someone said the same thing I said to them. And just remembering that, we are this family, and every family has conflict, and we work through it together, and we get stronger because of that. It's actually, it's a benefit, it's an advantage that the boss doesn't have over us, which is that we can move forward from that conflict together with a stronger bond than before. But it starts with ourselves individually. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice. And I'm still learning from that too.
Yeah. So I was saying earlier to the person who asked the question about power consolidation, I was like, wow, every question before this, Chris and Kyla hit the nail on the head, and I had really very little to add until their question, which gave me some, different stuff to say. But like this one, for example, right? So I was thinking in my head once the question was asked, I was like, okay, we have, remember, like, focus on what the issue is that brings us together. Focus on the real issues. And Chris said, yeah, the boss, the enemy. I was like, all right, check that box off. And I was like, all right, there's no conflict without, there's no growth without conflict. And then Kyla basically said the same thing. So I was like, wow, they just keep nailing it, which I love. And it's an honor to go third because I love improv. But I would say, like, another one of the biggest things that I have learned through this. So for context, at San Francisco State, I used to work in restorative justice, right? So basically, long story short, non-carceral and like non-full-time, staff positions, punishing kids, but rather students working with other students to resolve conflict. So I come from a background of like really trying to work through and resolving conflict. And I think the biggest way to go about it is don't shy away from it, right? Address it directly and remember that, you have to cultivate in yourself as a leader, you have to cultivate a space of comfort where you feel like that the people can come to you and actually say what's on their mind. That's the hardest thing for people to do, is to be honest, especially when it's going to cause conflict. So if you can make them feel seen and safe to talk about those things and facilitate that dialogue in a way that's actually meaningful, I think that is on you as a leader. I think that's what makes a good leader. And again, as I said, everything is a microcosm of the world we live in, right? So carceral systems like mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex, we're perpetuating harms on each other. So we have to make sure our classrooms aren't doing that, right, with the school to prison pipeline. But we also have to make sure that we're not doing that within ourselves in our own movement. We don't want a carceral bureaucratic system. So we have to move away from that. And we have to do that by having healing, restorative conversations. And I think it starts with us.
All right. Awesome. All right. So we're just about out of time. Although this can continue, we're going to have a reception out on the Flagstone Terrace, which is underneath one of the concrete buildings right across the way, underneath the campus center on that deck up there. But before that, we hope everyone will come out onto, I think, probably the steps, the lawn, and we're going to take a photo with everyone, with our great guests. And let me just say, just say two things. Like, I hope you all heard, I certainly heard, like, this is the character of our membership as well. And they're like, how can we help you all out? And you are hearing already, you've seen on the line lots of people here. People are serious about that. We want to be in constant dialogue and support you. We're one of those big unions, but we can help out, and we want to be there. And then just the second thing is just to thank you all, because it is so inspiring what you've said and the work you've done. There you go. There you go.
If we don't get it, shut it down. 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 We don't get it, shut it down. One more time, we don't get it, shut it down. Let me hear y'all. We don't get it, shut it down. Out to the people.
Thank you. Very, very.